For every 10 businesses listed for sale, only about 2 or 3 actually transfer. Most businesses don't sell because they aren't prepared or structured as sellable assets. A business that sells is never an accident. It's built that way. Hello, welcome to the GuideLight podcast. I'm Jason Trent, your host, and I am so glad you're here today. Today we got a great topic. We're going to be talking about the 5 reasons most owners can't exit. Now, there's obviously more than 5 reasons, but these are the top 5 reasons I've often seen of why basically, a lot of people have a business to sell and they just have trouble selling it. They don't have an exit plan. It's very interesting that there's a lot of resources out there that point to a strikingly low success rate for businesses that go on the market. I mean, we're talking potentially only about 20 to 30%. It does vary, based on the industry you're in, but still 20 to 30% of businesses that go on the market, that's all that actually close on a sale. I mean, think about it, 70 to 80% without a successful sale. Now, if you're looking to sell your business, that may, don't let that scare you because there's reasons why they don't. And so good thing you're listening to this because we're going to go through some of those. But again, statistic definitely increases or is more heightened if your revenue is under $1 million. So there's challenges there as well. So some of this is all in context, but at the same time, regardless of your size of business. So again, in simple terms, for every 10 businesses listed for sale, only about 2 or 3 actually transfer. So let's jump right into those top 5 reasons. So one of it, you'll probably guess, it's really about poor preparation before the sale. I mean, if you think about it, the worst thing you can do is not be prepared. Sometimes people, they want to sell and they say, okay, I'm going to sell my business, and they think they're going to do it in just a few months. That again, they're burned out or they're just stressed out or some, certain life events happening, but they start selling too late and they didn't prepare a lot. And several factors of that preparation have to do with your financials. A lot of times if, I've seen a lot, I don't want to tell any stories on this one because you can imagine I've seen a lot of businesses that, they don't even have QuickBooks. They just have a checking account and sometimes multiple checking accounts, and it's mixed with a personal account. And if your financials aren't cleanly audited, now again, of course, that's in the really small businesses, but even if you have a large business and you're 3-4 million in revenue, again, you need to have been working with a good accountant, have things in order, have your accounts in order. There's just a lot to that because they have to be auditable. They have to be able to get certain information verified and updated. So if your financials aren't clean, then that's a big hiccup, and that can take a while to get those things prepared, especially if you're looking back over a 3-year plus period of what you have going on. So that's a big one. Another one is really no documented processes or systems. I've talked about SOPs a lot on this podcast. And, that's one of the things, SOPs, standard operating procedures. If you don't have certain things about your business, like, how certain things run or certain protocols or certain systems that everyone follows, if you don't have that written down, then it's really difficult for buyers to have confidence in how your operation has been running. And that just goes a long way. And to be honest with you, they're not that hard to put in place. So a lot of times it really is just putting to paper what you've already done. And there's a lot of shortcuts to that as far as just getting documented. So that's a big one. So they want to see that the business can run in spite of you, because a lot of times the owner I've got it all up here. I know exactly how things are going. But again, if you're selling and you're not there, they want to have these things documented. Just a good business practice. Even if you're running a business, they're just, anyways, I got a soapbox on SOPs, so I'm not going to go down that road. But the reality is buyers see high risk when they can't, really confidently forecast future performance. So all these preparations, there's a lot more to this, but those are just some highlights of wanting to make sure that people can see, what your business is doing. And so poor preparation is a huge issue. And under the preparation umbrella, I will just say this. There's a verse that I like. It's Proverbs 24:27. It says, prepare your work outside. Get everything ready for yourself in the field. And after that, build your house. So that's just a great proverb with a lot of wisdom, just talking about being prepared before you move forward to that next step. So another one is unrealistic valuation and pricing. Unrealistic valuation and pricing, I've seen this a lot. Owners, they're very emotional. They're very proud of their business. They're looking at more what they need to retire on. They look at all these misinformation, or they heard about so-and-so getting this huge multiple on their EBITDA or whatever. And so they don't really, without going through the due diligence and understanding their scenario, their business, their financials of what that's really going to bring. I've seen, I'm talking with someone right now, they're, they just have an unrealistic, expectation. They've already had 3 buyers walk away because of, unrealistic expectation of their valuation and pricing. So that's a big one. You want it grounded in real data, because it kills the buyer engagement, and word gets out there, especially if you're for sale. And some of these buyers talk to each other, or just a lot of times there's due diligence and NDAs and whatnot. But the reality is, if you're working with a broker, it can be frustrating because they just know, hey, they're not going to budge from this, and most people aren't going to go to it. And no broker wants to be part of a bad deal. If they know that's overpriced, they know the owner's not going to budge. A lot of brokers are just going to lose confidence in wanting to try to even sell the business. So working with a professional, to get these valuations, even third parties, a lot of brokers will work with third parties on getting these things done. And if you work with a good broker, they'll also, they'll put it to market. So it'll be multiple bids. It won't just be one. So if you got 3 people and they're all coming, 15, 20% under what you were hoping for, it kind of tells you the market's price for that. And so that's something that a lot of business owners that are looking to sell really need to listen to. Overvaluation is cited as the number one reason businesses languish on the marketplace. So just note that. So number 3, owner dependence. This is one we've coached a lot of business owners how to overcome this one, but owner dependence really translates to lack of transferability. Most buyers don't want to buy a job. They want to buy a self-sustaining business, or at least one that a manager can step into and not have to do the day-to-day work necessarily, but at least can help oversee it or grow it, those types of things. So owner dependence really, like I said, translates to lack of transferability. If the revenue is going to drop the moment the owner steps away, buyers are going to see that as high risk. And so depending on how involved the owner is on the day-to-day operations, that's going to make a lot of people kind of concerned about it. Doesn't mean people aren't looking to buy that. There's always an avenue, but if you can prepare and do a little due diligence, beforehand, it's going to make the opportunity to actually get a closing on that business, much, it's going to increase it to be much higher. Not just you, as far as the owner, making sure that, it's not dependent on you, making sure you have a strong management team. Again, depending on the size of your business, if you have a good, strong, especially a tenured management team, that's something that businesses do like to see. Someone's been there for a while. They're, if someone has high turnover rate, with their employees and things like that, that just speaks to culture. So a lot of things that do with the owner, the team, all those things really come into play in making sure that someone feels comfortable and confident about the team that's in place, the owner that's going to be there, because a business that can't operate independently is just not very attractive to a lot of buyers out there. Number 4, timing and exit strategy issues. If you're an owner, you want to try to sell because you want to, you prepared things. You want to do it because you have to. You want to make sure you do it when the business is in the optimal position to attract buyers. I had one client that basically they had a really bad year, and they were looking to potentially sell, but they realized they needed to get 2 or 3 years. It was during COVID. And so they knew COVID set their books back financially a lot, but even still, they wanted to make sure they had 3 good years under their belt before they would sell. So, sometimes things out of our control and can impact that, but timing is going to be a big issue to really make sure that you have positioned yourself well. Of course, sometimes people, and this happens a lot, health issues. Again, someone just wants to retire, and there's all these different things happen. There's market downturns, cash flows. There's all sorts of variables out there when it comes to timing and other variables that basically, if things aren't prepared, if you haven't walked through it, and again, if you can't give yourself that extra time, it's definitely going to hamper your ability to close, or at least close at the pricing you want, an optimal price. So those are variables that are out there. Again, sometimes you have control of these, sometimes you don't, but it's always good. And we talk to a lot of our clients. Really, you need to just, when it comes to timing and other issues, that's why we counsel a lot of people. We work with a lot of businesses to, on, even if you're like 5 to 10 years out from even considering selling, walk through certain things, start putting things in place. You've heard me, reference the book by John Warlow, Built to Sell. Really trying to structure your business in those kind of formats, and using some of the wisdom out of his book to really just kind of position yourself well in some of those. You don't want to be a reactive seller, right? You want to be a proactive seller, because that's just going to increase it. Number 5, market and external constraints. Kind of alluded to it just a moment ago. External issues, the market. Sometimes, a business owner, it's a solid market, but financing conditions are unfavorable. I mean, if you think about what we've went through over the last 10 years with, or even in the last 6 years or so, interest rates, tax positions, all these things can sometimes yield to something being unfavorable or favorable. So again, these external market constraints sometimes just it makes the valuations go down, or just reduces the activity in the marketplace about somebody looking for business. So the high cost of financing can prevent buyers from winning deals. Those again are things to plan. Now, I wouldn't say that's necessarily something you say, hey, I'm going to sell because the market's hot right now. We've talked about that, but again, I can't say this enough. That's why planning way ahead of time and looking at windows that you might want to retire in gives you a lot of flexibility. Like if you look at, hey, I'd like to retire in this 5-year window, and 2 years into it, you just see all the stars are aligned, go ahead and pull the trigger early. If you've prepared and done those kind of things, it gives you that flexibility to where if you have a hard set date, you may have to wait a couple of years. That can add frustration and all sorts of things, for people who want to, exit their business and sell. So a lot of things, and I've seen this in a lot of industries we work with, is just, industry specific headwinds. Depending on your industry, it could have nothing to do with the economy. It could just have something to do unique to your industry. I mean, AI is changing a lot of things right now, and I don't think we've seen that fully come to fruition in a lot of the marketplaces, but we're definitely seeing it. We're hearing it in certain industries where AI is making an impact already. So that's just something you have to look at. And that's why it's important to kind of know your business and know your industry. I was talking with a business owner, I guess it was a couple of weeks ago, and they were saying, I really don't keep up with, my industry that much. And I was like, well, you need to, because if you did, you'd understand A, B, and C. And so we help there as well with people that it's a lot of business owners, their heads down, they're just kind of grinding through, wanting to get things done. So being aware of those industry and economic headwinds, it's a big factor in wanting to understand things. And again, even local and regulatory challenges and some of that stuff, that stuff can really have an impact. So especially in small business markets, again, like if your EBITDA is under $1 million, those markets, those variables can have a bigger impact whenever you're trying to see what this means for business owners. If you're thinking about selling or advising someone who is, understanding why deals fail, it's vital. Most businesses don't sell because they aren't prepared or structured as sellable assets, not because there's not buyers out there. So being prepared, structuring your business, that's huge. So the takeaway is a business that sells is never an accident. It's built that way. Thank you for joining us. That's all I got today. If you found this valuable, do click on the link below to take a very quick assessment to see where you stand in exit preparedness. Also, please subscribe, like, and share. Thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you on the next episode.